Okay. So, good afternoon, everybody from Athens. It's a great pleasure to welcome so many colleagues from all over Southeast Europe and the East Med, and from other countries as well, and many participants. So, this is a year-end activity for us at IENE. So, we decided to devote this on energy security in Southeast Europe and East Mediterranean, with energy security being a recurring issue, as John Roberts will explain to you further on. And I think we couldn't have chosen a more suitable time, since a lot of things have been happening over the last 2-3 days. We've seen problems in the Red Sea. We have continuous problems in the Gaza-Israel area. And also with the war in Ukraine, which now is nearly the end of its second year, but military activity is, I would say, as strong as ever, with attacks from either side. So we have an unstable situation, and rather than the situation being, I would say, quietening, is not. We'll see eruptions from here and there. And of course, we have not even discussed Africa, where there are wars going on, both in the west part, or because of ISIS, and in the east part, in the Sudan area. So how is all this is impacting Europe and world and global markets? This is something which we're obviously going to discuss, and I have posed some questions. Another question is how likely is the current issue, the conflict in Israel-Gaza, going to spill over in the broader region? We thought that this is not going to happen easily, but we see eruption in the Red Sea. So maybe Iran will not be directly involved, but we see its proxies from all different parts playing a very, very active role. And Amit Moore will explain more on this as we go on. The end result being that markets at the end get upset, as we've seen, because the price of oil has jumped from about 73 to about $79 per barrel for Brent, which is the standard international variety. Markets had quietened after the initial conflict erupted in Israel. Then markets quietened, and now again they're on the rise. So far from moving towards a more peaceful environment, we see that the danger lurks around the corner. And this is something we have to take into consideration when we're making plans in the energy markets, either in the markets through the various exchanges, or actually planning infrastructure projects or expanding activities of companies, either it's in electricity or gas or oil or renewables. So yes, energy security has come back in force, I would say, and this is something which we should focus on as we look ahead next year. Also, we are observing problems in the further development of renewable energy sources. In several countries in the region, we see that the market operators are obliged to send some of the incoming loads to idle or to disband them. In a way, the electricity grids appear to be overstretched and overloaded, with more electricity come at particular times of the day from renewables. And this problem is not going away easily. In fact, it is going to get more serious as more renewable capacity is entering the grid. So yes, renewables is definitely a way to try and achieve energy independence and lessen our reliance on oil and gas and coal. But now that they have entered markets in a big scale, we see the actual problems of synchronization and compatibility. So that's another issue which affects energy security, because it affects the security of the electricity grid systems. And electricity grid systems should produce steady, reliable, and at competitive prices electricity. So this comes also into play. And finally, in the light of geopolitical events of the last 2 years, a number of governments in the region are starting to think in terms of energy autonomy in an effort to strengthen their energy security. So energy autonomy is something, again, we have to discuss. And to what extent can we aspire to energy autonomy? Because the world is interlinked, markets are interconnected. So it's not something that each country can decide so easily by itself. Some countries are very well on the way to achieve energy autonomy with long-term plans. And I hope Yurda Kul will tell us more of what's happening in Turkey, which is making very important strides towards getting more and more taking advantage of its indigenous energy sources. And of course, we'll have to discuss the role of fossil fuels and renewable energy together and how they can interact in improving energy security and the importance of a balance in the energy mix, something which we have discussed at length with Slavco in various conferences and also with Ionut Purica. So these are issues which we are all aware, we have been discussing over the last few months, but yes, coming to the end of the year and looking ahead next year, this is something that I think will is important at this point of time to address. So without further ado, I would like to ask John Roberts to join our discussion and to make an introduction into this issue, which he knows very well. Hello, John, you have the floor.
Hello, Kostas, and hello, everybody, and thanks for having me. As you pointed out, we have a very uncertain situation. If I start with the Gaza-Israel war, it is surprising, I think, so far that it has essentially remained confined to Gaza itself. However, why do I say it's surprising? Because we have not seen, for example, a massive eruption on the Israeli-Lebanese front. There has been exchanges of fire, but no mass attack by Hezbollah or participation in a mass scale. Much the same can be said in the West Bank. There has been vastly increased militancy amongst the Israeli settler community, including attacks on Palestinians and killings of Palestinians, but as yet, no major uprising in the West Bank to match, or to not to match the scale of Gaza, but as it were to compensate for the fighting in Gaza. What we have seen is, of course, the Houthis in Yemen showing their support for Hamas in shooting at cargo traffic on the Red Sea. Now, I just want to make one clear point. I have absolutely no problem in describing Hamas as a terrorist organization. At the same time, what bothers me is the level of popular support Hamas is gaining as a result of the Israeli actions in Gaza. And I really worry how much longer the Palestinians of the West Bank can essentially stay out of this conflict. And likewise, I worry how much the Iranians will, as it were, make their assessment of the situation with regard to Hezbollah and Lebanon and decide that it is time for Hezbollah to take action against Israel as well. In other words, I think the cork on the bottle is very delicately poised at the moment, and I am really afraid that it will blow off and that the fighting in Gaza becomes something more general. Against that, of course, is the whole question of the fact that there are various countries, whether you talk of the United States, whether you talk of Qatar, whether you talk of Turkey, who are trying to make sure that this does not happen. So it's not an absolute given. But if the cork blows, then everything we know about energy security, we have to start rewriting. We've already seen something of it with the rerouting of BP tankers around the Cape of Good Hope, rather than going through the Red Sea and Suez. And of course, other shipping like Maersk is doing the same. So the idea that there will be an upward projection of oil prices is there. But is there any good news that we're getting? Is it possible to argue that the stalemate in Ukraine is good news? Here again, we have some very peculiar information. Rather oddly, Russia has now no problem with the idea that Ukraine is going to halt all exports across Ukraine of its gas. Why? Because Russia has found other ways of getting gas into Europe, both by pipeline through Turkey and the possible development of a limited form of hub activity in Turkey, and indeed by increased development of LNG, which is managing to get out to the world. And a very strong point in Russia's favor in terms of how it benefits Russia is that LNG is a fungible commodity in a way that pipeline gas is not. Where do I go next? I worry still a little bit about gas, though less than in the past, because on the whole, Europe is adapting to the loss of Russian pipeline gas. Its own appetite for gas is diminishing and continuing to diminish, and storage is high, so there should be no problem this winter. And after that, it should be okay as a whole in terms of overall European demand. But of course, there will still be specific shortages in specific areas. Hence the need for countries like Bulgaria and for Serbia to keep importing gas and to find new ways of importing gas. Where could that gas come from? Well, of course, the European Union is looking to Azerbaijan. And here we have a rather odd state of affairs. I think we may be heading to a situation in which Azerbaijan cannot actually deliver in conventional gas terms the kind of volumes envisaged when it signed its agreement with the EU in July 2022 that would essentially talking about doubling supply from a putative base of around 10 to a prospective level of around 20 BCM a year in or around 2027. Given Azerbaijan's production trajectory for its individual fields, that does not seem possible. They might get 5 or 6, but that's about it. They will eventually get to 10, I don't doubt that. They have got the resources, but it's going to be much more complicated and take much longer than expected. And yet, what we are also seeing in Azerbaijan is an enormous effort to boost their renewables capacity. In effect, as quickly as possible, to double domestic, to add 50% to their domestic power consumption through renewables, ideally within 3 or 4 years. They also want to export 1 gigawatt of electricity into Europe via a connector that would go Azerbaijan, Georgia, the Black Sea, Romania, and Hungary. Again, I think it's optimistic to assume this can really have an effect before around 2028, 2029. But what is interesting is the intense focus Azerbaijan has these days on renewables. And that means that while there might be a shortfall on gas, they may be working to try to see how they can make up that shortfall by providing a certain amount of electricity in its place. And this fits in very much with Azerbaijan's hosting of COP 20, I forget which one we're talking about, next year's COP. And perhaps the last thing I'll say is that, first of all, Azerbaijan's position within the Southeastern European energy security nexus is exemplified by its future chairmanship of COP, because this was going to go to a Central or Southern European country. And the fact that there has been such strong backing for Azerbaijan to be the holder is a tribute to the effective development of relations in energy between Azerbaijan as a supplier and Southeastern Europe as a consumer. And the very last point, which is a real optimistic point, is the complete surprise announcement about a week ago, 10 days ago, that Armenia was supporting Azerbaijan's presidency of COP. This seems to me the biggest single positive declaration we've had that Azerbaijan and Armenia may reach a peace settlement. And if you have a peace settlement, then one core element of that is bound to be the increased energy integration of the South Caucasus, with Azerbaijan and indeed Georgia from hydropower able to contribute electricity as well as gas and indeed refined products to Armenia. In other words, there is one area that is showing some signs of hope, even though in general, the political signals throughout the region are not terribly good. I'll stop there.
So thank you, John, very much for well-placed comments and very timely, and for identifying these areas of concern, which is not one, there are several, as you pointed out. But you closed with spirit of optimism around Azerbaijan. And I would like, before going to our next speaker, which is Ionut Purika, I'd just like to ask for some clarifications on what you said concerning the potentially available quantities of gas from Azerbaijan. If I'm right, you mentioned that according to plan, Azerbaijan will be able to supply an extra 5 or 10 BCM by 2028, in addition to the 10 that it is already supplying through TAP. Is that right?
Almost. I think there's no problem that it will get up to 5. The problem is getting from 5 to 10.
Okay.
And I tend to think that that is far more likely to take place by sort of 2029, 2030 than it is by 2027.
Okay.
It's just going to take longer to get full capacity.
Okay. Does this involve the Absaron field?
Yes. The initial 5 BCM, they should be able to get 3.5 BCM, maybe 4 BCM out of Absheron. And they should be able to get perhaps a little bit from Umid and Babek.
Okay.
But at the same time, of course, Azerbaijan's own domestic consumption is growing. And the problem there is that the very early bits of Absheron that have just come on stream are already earmarked for domestic use. It's the next phase that is going to be devoted for export. Okay. But that should be ready and operational by about 2026, 2027.
Okay. Now, let me pick up your brains a little further. 2 issues. Is Turkmenistan making any moves, any appeasement moves to be able to export some gas to Azerbaijan? Secondly, is Russia still supplying gas to Azerbaijan in any way or form?
The second one is that Azerbaijan still seems to be receiving some gas from Gazprom, but it appears to be a seasonal agreement, and the volumes are not that great. What is possibly more significant is the 1.5 BCM that is routinely year on year from Turkmenistan via swaps with Iran.
Yes.
In terms of direct supplies, first of all, I'm biased. I ought to acknowledge, yes, I'm on the advisory board of a group that is trying to promote the idea of Turkmenistan gas going westwards. The problem is we are trying to promote what we think is realistic, namely a small volume, about 5 BCM, that can then rise to 10 or 12 as the Southern Gas Corridor is expanded. Whereas, as far as we can tell, and I would love to be proved wrong, the Turkmens are still essentially focused on the concept that if they're going to export gas westwards and thus potentially upset Russia, they only really want to do it if it's for a volume of something like 30 BCM. And the problem with 30 BCM is that it requires a completely new set of infrastructure.
All right.
That at this stage is simply unfinanceable.
Okay. So thank you very much, John. You clarified this. I will come back at the end of this session for a more general discussion. And we'll go now to Ionut Purika from Bucharest. Hello, Ionut. You have the floor.
Hello. First, thank you for giving me the occasion of exchanging a few ideas. It's a very interesting and actual topic related to security. And I will try to synthesize a few things. First, it's a question of geopolitics. We are in between 2 wars. Second, it's a question of diversification of resources. Third, it's a question of potential strategies. And then we are talking about market and the inside dynamics of systems that have got to be secured in their functioning. And finally, humans that are exposed to energy potential disturbances, energy dynamics. Let's not forget that presently, now as we speak, the ministers of energy in the European Union are in Brussels discussing various things related to efficiency and to other topics of energy. Let's go for what I wanted to say. First, geopolitics. We are in between two wars. One war is a standard war, government to government, Russians to Ukrainians. And the other war is a relatively more exotic war. It's a private organization, Hamas. And I used to say that war has been privatized, and the government of Israel. The thing is that the evolution of these two wars in different ways is actually impacting on energy security in the area. If the Ukrainians, or let's say, if the Russians would continue their diversification of energy exports to Ukraine with what I call ammunition and explosions, it's still energy, but with very short time constant of conversion, just to play a little exotic exposure of the whole thing, then we may still be in a very awkward situation in relation to security. One thing that we were discussing at a certain moment was a gas pipeline north-south, the Varex to the Greeks old road, not only the Silk Road, which is east-west. This would actually increase the security of the eastern flank of NATO and European Union. One other thing that should be said in terms of geopolitics is that there was a high talk about parallel way road from the one in the north, Russia, China, Russia, and so on, with India, Israel, Arabia, Israel, and European Union. And that, I wonder whether the situation in Israel is not actually done to somehow create the perception of instability on that road. I don't know who will get advantage of this, but anyway, it's not a question, a local question of Hamas, Gaza, and so on. Just to make a brief sidewise comment, it's not the first time that Israel is conquering Gaza. Read the Bible, Joshua 10, 28 to 43, and you will find that thousands of years ago, the situation was almost the same in that area. The idea is that it is very clear that what is happening now is a situation of the butterfly effect, as I call the nonlinear type of behavior. Any small change in a parameter or in a evolution of a certain type of relations there may trigger a totally different evolution of the whole region. Iran, even Saudi Arabia, that is now arming itself a lot. Another thing that we should consider is that the European Union had three main strategies in energy. I was a member of the advisory group for energy of the Commission, European Commission, and first it was the famous Green Deal, Fit for 55, call it as you want, a reduction of emissions. Second, it was energy security, and that strategy is now taking the lead in terms of importance. And third, and I think it's not given enough importance, it was the innovation in energy. We need new technologies, we need new ways of making system stability of the systems and operations that would actually increase our independence in terms not exactly of resources, but of the way we handle security in energy. Now, let me get to diversification of resources. The latest things that we are discussing in Romania is a direct current cable from Azerbaijan, Georgia, under the Black Sea, Romania, Hungary, which is an electric type of cable. It's not gas, a gas pipeline. And that is an interesting DC high voltage cable. Just to mention the whole thing. Another thing that was a very interesting idea, actually, that Costis had proposed and suggested some time ago, was the increase of security of the area by combining the capabilities in various types of energy technologies of the countries, of the economies in that area. We were talking nuclear in Romania with hydro in Greece, nuclear in Romania and Bulgaria, for example, or also getting Hungary on board on nuclear with Greece and various others having a large hydro capability plus volatilities. And if I'm talking about, so in order to, it's not a question of only diversification. We find gas in offshores in the Black Sea, Turkey, Romania. We find gas in the Mediterranean, around Cyprus, or in the Egyptian part of Mediterranean, Israeli part, and so on. We can put pipelines toward Europe or to various parts of that area that we consider important. It's a question of the time constants of getting those resources usable and available. Moreover, talking about system stability, because I was mentioning that, we've been doing some calculations, taking the volatilities. We had large amount of data, big data, starting rains, temperatures, hydrolicity of the Danube, for example, and so on. Just as an example, we have the Danube flows starting 1845, every month and so on, and later even hourly data. But the thing is that taking the volatilities of the various renewables, wind, photovoltaics, hydrolicity, so hydro, we are in a position to calculate the necessary backup power, the necessary reserving of power in the system. And that is something that introduces or internalizes an externality cost of security. Up till now, there was no such exercise, internalizing the cost of security in the energy prices, energy costs, for example. And since I'm talking costs and prices, let's get to the market. Up till now, for the last, I don't know, 70 something, almost 80 years, since the end of the Second World War, we were taught, and we started even to believe as a religion, that market is solving everything. In terms of peace, yes, market has got certain limits in between. Its operation is a balance of the normal wish of profit and the competition. What is happening, what has happened the last 2 years, and probably needs a lot of attention is that the balance in the market outside the limits of normal operation cannot solve everything, and the market can be, for example, used as an instrument of war to impact the economies before somebody is attacking them in different other ways, financial, military, and so on. The other thing that is very important is that, and the European Commission woke up to it after almost a year of waiting for the market to solve the thing, is that we need to structure markets such that it would actually act as an element of security for the whole economic functioning. I'm talking power markets, gas markets, energy markets in general. We need to combine those markets with financial markets to understand how they operate, because they are combined without us understanding or not understanding how they operate. And then it's a question of not being afraid to regulate or to actually take action, not necessarily continuous and definitive action of regulatory measures, but use regulatory as a stability element, at least for the period where the markets are in turmoil. When stock exchanges prices are going berserk, the transactions are stopping. We cannot stop delivering energy, but we can regulate. One other thing is the perception of energy systems dynamic and impact on the economies. And that perception goes from the business community down to the consumers. And actually, as was saying at a certain moment, we work to live, we don't live to work. Actually, energy is used to really be an element of civilization, an element of that would actually be under the trilemma of indicators of the Energy Council, which is secure, environmentally friendly, and affordable. And we are now in the moment of, and I'm somehow ending with this and a small other idea, we are now in the moment of considering energy efficiency. And energy efficiency is not a question of reducing energy, because there's always the trivial solution, as they call it in mathematics, the zero solution. We don't consume energy at all. Yes, we are practically going back to Stone Age. But even before that, because Stone Age still had got fire. But the thing is that we have to understand better the way we consume energy. My example that I always gave, I've been through that at a certain moment, finding this type of thing. And we are now coming to the idea of innovation and acceptance of new technologies. For example, lighting, public lighting in the buildings. Why do we need public lighting? Because we don't see in the dark. But we have the technology to see in the dark. It's called infrared goggles. See all the military movies and things like that. If one is to mass produce infrared goggles, everybody will get infrared goggles, and we will see in the dark. No need for lighting. Actually, in our cities, in our buildings, there will be a tremendous economy with the reduction of emission and so on. But do we accept to shut off the lights and get the infrared goggles? Whoever will not have them, obviously, will be an energy poverty because they will have to go to bed as soon as night comes.
Yeah.
The thing is that
Yonut,
what
can I
actually we
stop you
should be
here?
careful about, and this is the last message I want to pass over, is that we actually need to go for more innovation to shorten the times to market of new technologies.
Okay.
Fusion is coming over. Small modular reactors are actually nuclear is having a reborn. There are various other technologies that could be used in order to secure independence, not actually in the sense of independence, but independence in the sense of capability to have energy where we want it and where we want it at an affordable price. Thank you.
All right, Yonut, thank you very much. You have raised a number of very important issues. Now, my takeaway are three or four areas. First of all, innovation, which you brought out on many instances. The second one is the internalization of the cost of security.
Security externalities.
Right. And externalities, which is already happening. I mean, what the most suppliers do when they form the prices for the next day or for the next month is they always they integrate a factor of uncertainty. And depending on the general economic political situation, this could be from 5%, 10%, even to 20%. So if you manage to actually to ascertain this in a more exact way, mathematical modeling and all that, obviously this will help because this parameter could be more precise and therefore less speculative, which will be for the benefit of the consumer because the price will be more reasonable. So that's a very important issue which you have brought up. And the other thing is about the very important thing you mentioned about we cannot stop delivering energy, but we can regulate energy. And the question is how to do it, because already we have good regulators all over the place. They regulate, they put a lot of conditions on how to produce and how to deliver energy, a lot of extra charges and all that. So I think you're referring to regulation when it comes to critical moments, right? If we have a critical moment, how the regulator can actually help to preserve or to maintain sort of flow of energy without problem. Is that right?
I have two examples, one good example and one bad example. I'm starting with the good because I am optimist. By the way, you know, pessimist is saying it can't be worse than that. And the optimist is replying, oh, yes, it can.
Right. I can't hear you. Now I cannot see you.
The good example, talking about regulation, is actually Spain. The moment the prices of gas have gone to the sky in the Central Europe, in Germany and so on, the Spanish government disconnected from the market, the Central Europe market, and they established their own prices with gas coming from import from Algeria and North Africa, such that at a certain moment, the price in Spain was about 100, 150 euros per megawatt hour, while it was about 700 euros in Germany.
Yeah, obviously, yes, this is a good example. Now,
regulatory activity used to increase security. It doesn't mean that market cannot come in later, but at a certain moment, It's a question of using the instruments available for security of securing a safe economy. The
Okay.
bad example that I wanted to
All right.
give is the one that I'm relatively frequently giving in this last year. It's a question of using one parameter and creating a false logic. For example, coal is polluting. Let us cancel the use of coal. By the same logic, the largest source of pollution locally is transportation. Should we cancel the use of transportation? It is wrong. The right approach is to replace the polluting transport technologies with non-polluting ones, at least locally, electric vehicles, fuel cells, hydrogen, and also to replace the polluting coal use with clean coal technologies, carbon capture, storage, and use, and so on.
Okay.
We have those technologies. This is the innovation strategy that has got to take priority.
Okay, I think this is well described, and I need to move to the next speaker, and we come back later for discussion. So thank you, Yonut. We go straight away to Amit Mor in Israel. Amit, you have the floor.
So thank you very much, Kostis, for inviting me, and hello, good friends and new friends. I prepared several slides to share with you, and try to be brief. Okay, I hope that you can see the slide.
Good.
So,
yes.
What are the effects or the impact of the war in Gaza on the Israeli, Gazan, regional and international energy markets, and lessons that we learned from this war? So let's start with Gaza. Gaza, 2.3 million people. Supply of electricity was over 60% from Israel in 10 lines, and I'm speaking everything until the 6th of the Black Sabbath, Black Saturday of 6th of October. Now it's, of course, completely different. So basically, and very poor region, electricity consumption of about 250 megawatts, that's all. So basically, about 60% from Israel, 10 lines, one gas turbine or combined cycle that is running on diesel in the past 20 years, that was financed by Qatar, 150 megawatts, only 50 megawatts is capacity is working. But the major thing that happened, since there was an energy crisis there in 2018-19, is that a good friends of mine, Professor Itai Fischer and Lior Herman from the Hebrew University, what they did and published 2 years ago, they basically utilized satellite pictures of the Gaza Strip, and with AI, artificial intelligence, they mapped all the photovoltaic panels, PV solar panels, which were installed from 2012 to 2019. So basically, you can see from left to right the very massive installations of solar power because of the scarcity and lack of electricity in Gaza. So people installed on the rooftops, plus batteries at their homes, panels when they could. And so they have minimal amount of electricity for lighting, for charging their mobiles, for possibly a refrigerator at night, and very quickly. So basically, the information that they gathered till 2019 was that about from zero, it increased to about close to 50 megawatts. That is about even more, and doubled between 1918 and 1919. Following the war, with my military capacity, I gathered some information from the Israeli civilian, basically that in charge of the export, all the export to Gaza went through Israel. So they had a very precise information about the amount of solar panels which were imported by Gaza between 2019 to 2000 until October 2023, 2 months ago. So basically, they supplied me with very good information about in weight, how much weigh the panels. We know about the panel, how much it weighs. So I made some calculation. So basically, before the war, 55% of the electricity in Gaza was supplied by solar panels. So this is basically, that's not the situation, of course, now, but when Israel started, when the war started after the terrible attack of Hamas, the 7th of October, Israel shut the flow of electricity to Gaza, but Gaza was not in the dark, at least not at the beginning, because the tunnels of the Hamas and people got electricity from the solar panels. So basically, the great lessons, the lessons that we learned from Gaza is that, and all around in Israel, we should all learn from that. We know the benefits of renewable energy, distributed energy, and so on. But the major contribution of distributed energy and renewable energy to energy security, that's a major lesson that something to learn from the Gazan that we are discussing these days to enhance the penetration of renewable energy in Israel and many other countries. Again, to learn from Lebanon, collapsing state, collapsing economy, almost 2-3 hours a day of electricity. So what people are doing, installing solar panels at the rooftops and from their balconies and everywhere they can, and the cost have reduced dramatically. What we saw here is a picture of a good colleague of mine, a young, 25 years old, Gazan, from there, when she was 18 years old, 7 years ago, she initiated a solar PV company, and she did very well, and many others in Gaza. I meet her twice a week in a biannual conference in Prague, and she's telling me about the major industry in Gaza of installation of solar panels. We see also a picture that the EU sponsored a 1 megawatt solar panel plant to supply electricity to a desalination plant, for example. So solar power panels or distributed energy is a very important mean to diversify energy sources and especially to enhance energy security. And now back to Israel. Israel, and that's our forecast till 2050, basically we're 80% coal only 10 years ago, 20% oil in power generation as fuel, basket of fuel power generation, with a very rapid penetration of natural gas and phasing out coal, basically a world record in the pace of phasing out coal. It's going to be phased out totally in 2-3 years' time. And natural gas this year will supply 75% of the electricity, coal about 15%, and renewables, only solar in our case, because there's no potential for wind, no hydro, no geothermal. So basically all about solar, especially PV, some concentrated solar power, and basically 10%, we will go to 20%, 30%, 40%. You'll see our forecast until 2050, maybe some nuclear energy towards the end of the period, we don't know yet. So that's the situation right now, 75% solar, natural gas these days. But what happened on the 7th of October? If you see the map here, Gaza is basically here. And the Tamar field, 150 kilometers, 2 pipelines supply gas to this platform and a pipeline to Israel. Basically, Tamar, which supplied 60% of the gas to the domestic market, was shut off by the Israeli government because the government was afraid, the Ministry of Defense, the military, that the rockets of Hamas will hit this platform which treats the gas, and then it's going to be a catastrophe. So if the platform is not processing, so at least the damage is going to be, of course, very major damage, but no major explosion because no gas in the platform, and so on. So basically, what happened is that domestic supply of gas to Israel was not interrupted because the Leviathan field compensated for the lacking gas from Tamar field. And also in last November, almost a year ago, gas from Karish field run by Greek Energean started to supply the market. So basically, once the Leviathan field covered for the Tamar field, there was no shortage of gas to Israel. But who suffered? Leviathan field especially export gas to Jordan, and 70% of the electricity in Jordan is based off gas from Israel from Leviathan field, and to Egypt via this EMG pipeline from Ashkelon to El Arish and Northern Sinai in Egypt. So about increasing to 8 BCM per year export of Israeli gas from Leviathan field, and now we'll start also from Tamar. Tamar came on board last month, returned to supply when the threat from Gaza reduced. And so what happened is that Leviathan covered from the gas from the Tamar field. Israel didn't suffer a shortage of gas or electricity, continue to supply the same amount of gas to Jordan, because Jordan is totally dependent on 70% of its electricity from that gas, and continue to supply gas to Egypt via this pipeline, the Arab pipeline, but the gas supplied to Egypt via the EMG subsea pipeline stopped. So who suffered from that? Egypt and Europe. Why? Because first, a major shortage of gas in Egypt, which is suffering a shortage of gas anyway, and also some of the Israeli gas mixed with Egyptian gas is liquefied in these two terminals in Damietta and Itku, and that gas is directed especially to Turkey and Europe. And in the past few months, the export decreased significantly because of the shortage of gas in Egypt. But who was affected from this war and the shutdown of Tamar field, especially the Egyptian market, the Egyptian electricity market, and exportation of Israeli gas to Europe and Turkey. So that's in the short term, the effect. In the longer term, if hopefully not, there's going to be escalation with the war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, so the Leviathan field and the Karish field most likely will shut down. Therefore, the Israeli market and the Jordanian market and the Egyptian market and some gas which is liquefied and exported to Europe will suffer also. We very hope that there's not going to be any major escalation of the ongoing war between Israel and Hezbollah, which is taking place these days. Vis-a-vis international oil and gas prices, this war almost did not affect the prices, maybe in the first few days, 2-3% in oil prices, higher influence on LNG and natural gas prices, but to a very short time because of the fear that Iran, which is mastering Hezbollah, its proxies, and the Houthis in Yemen, the proxy of Iran, and so on. So there was some fear in the market that Iran will be involved and so on. Maybe will shut as they threaten the flow of oil and gas from the Strait of Hormuz and so on. This was not happened yet. But what happened is, of course, because of the war in Gaza, the Houthis started to launch missiles and unmanned airplanes and so on and so forth to Israel, which were all intercepted. But lately also oil and merchant shipping in the Bab el-Mandab Straits, as you know very well, and Kostis, you spoke about that, John, as well. Basically, almost shutting altogether the flow of 12% of the international oil market and a lot more of the international trade via the Suez Canal. So who is affected? Egypt, especially because about $10 billion of income from the Suez Canal per year, and it did not affect much oil prices yet. 1.5% increase yesterday because after following BP announcement that it's not going to ship any longer via the Red Sea. But if this war and immediately, very, I say in a short period, arrangement of the US, Germany alliance of countries to form a shipping force to patrol in the region, and maybe in the future, if they will not be able to convince the Houthis to stop, to convince the Iranian. The Houthis are a proxy of Iran in this respect. So this became a major international problem, which might affect the international energy market in the future. Right now, of course, if ships from the Persian Gulf will need to go to bypass Africa to get to Europe and the Americas, so of course it's going in the intermediate and long run increase energy prices, LNG prices, and of course oil prices as well. Meanwhile, we don't see the effect because it's just a matter of the past few days. So we see that a local war between Israel and the Hamas in Gaza is causing such a disruption of the international shipping market, including oil shipping and LNG shipping. And basically, the address here is especially Iran, because Iran is running the Houthis in this respect, and the diplomatic way, or possibly the military way, to cope with the Houthis, you really need a global alliance of America, Europe, and possibly other nations, possibly China and India, to influence Iran. So we see that this local war that Hamas initiated exactly 75 days ago is indeed causing a major problem to the international market, shipping market, including and possibly in the future also to the international energy markets. I will sum up here, and if you have any questions or follow-up, I'd be delighted to reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit, very much for a very clear exposition of how the situation really is shaping post-Gaza, post-Hamas invasion of Israel. You brought up some very interesting points, including the electricity supply of Gaza, which is relying on photovoltaics. But of course, when Israel stopped supplying electricity, I mean, for their power station, because I think they also have a thermal power station, oil power station, then obviously they were not able to have electricity because we have a system where it accommodates various forms of energy. So we have a very good exposition of that. Whereas some individual houses, we had standalone systems, obviously they had electricity. The interesting thing you brought about the Houthis and how a relatively small military mobilization on their part is causing such great havoc in international trade, and we see how the how advanced systems and of course logistics are provided by Iran are causing this trouble. And I'd like to ask you one question on how you see it from your point. We see over the last few weeks a remarkable self-restraint on the part of Hezbollah. At least this is what appears to the West, that they are not attacking as they could. And at the same time, we see that Iran is taking care not to get directly involved, and at the same time is increasing its oil exports, its oil production and its oil exports. So the question is there a secret deal somewhere which allows Iran to increase its oil to the international market, specifically India and China, which is good in the sense of ensuring enough oil supply. And at the same time, the other part of the deal is, yes, I'm not going to interfere very much, at least not directly. Is there a deal somewhere there? I would very much like to have your views.
No, I don't think there is a deal. But basically, Hezbollah is also a proxy of Iran, but it is not, most likely not obeying Iran's order without major concern and thinking, because Mr. Nasrallah is a clever guy. Now, maybe the world is not so aware, but there is an ongoing war on the Israeli-Lebanese border every day.
Okay.
Tens of thousands of Israelis were evacuated north of the border. 200,000 of Lebanese were evacuated towards Beirut, and there is ongoing war every day. I think that Mr. Nasrallah understands that if he made further escalation to a full war, so of course, make a lot of damage to Israel, because they have much farther, hundreds of thousands, close to 200,000 missiles, precise missiles. It's not like Hamas in this respect, but also Lebanon as a whole will be damaged, and it's not for the benefit of the Hezbollah as well. Hezbollah most likely will be damaged, suffer many casualties as well, and as Israel did in 2006, the all Shiite Hezbollah's region quarter in Beirut might be eliminated. So in this respect, he is restrained, and we hope that some political or hopefully not military intervene, further escalation of the war will lead to change this situation. And I don't think that Iran also wants a complete destruction of Lebanon in this respect. And Iran enjoying the situation in this respect, that it opened two fronts, one or three fronts. You see of course, Hamas, which decided upon itself, didn't get direct orders from Iran, Lebanon, Hezbollah, and now the Houthis from Yemen. So let's hope there's no further escalation in this respect.
Thank you very much for a very clear explanation. We appreciate it. So now we come to Yuda Guden, who I understand is somewhere in the tropics. So you have the floor.
Thank you for inviting me to this very timely webinar. As you know, we got a lengthy pandemic and later a war in Ukraine. And just when we started to normalize, the global supply chain started to normalize, this war between Israel and Hamas surprised the world audience. So thanks God, until now, the big players in the region are still out of the picture. They act responsibly like Iran and US, except the Houthis, who should control the Houthis. So the Saudi and United Arab Emirates were fighting them for decades. And so now they want to show that they are a player in the region for future peace talks, and they want to prove that also their ability to their domestic audience and its effects on the energy shipping is naturally will be unavoidable, but this will be not that harsh like a closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And it seems that the players, the actors are still responsible in this regard. So when we look how can we supply our region with additional natural gas? It was a perfect issue, high natural gas prices and global warming, mild climate and warm climate helped to save a lot of natural gas. I don't want to think vice versa. Cold weather and low gas prices will naturally change this picture. But the region, our region was somehow prepared for this crisis, not fully, but partly. Compare with Germany, they refused over the years to build a LNG facility. Although Germany is the #1 producer of the equipment and machinery for LNG facilities, they refuse to bring additional gas from Caspian sources. I was the lead negotiator there. They said we cannot endanger our relations with Russia. So now they became champion of LNG facilities, and very early in our region, Turkey and Greece started to diversify by building LNG facilities, followed later by Croatia, and now these efforts are ongoing. Greece is boosting its LNG capacities. Croatia is expanding the Kirk facility. Montenegro is presenting now the Bar LNG facility for development. And Turkey has 9 entry points at the time being, not 7 like mentioned in the position paper, background paper of IENE. And so the countries, Greece and Turkey, are best situated to cooperate with other Southeast European countries to supply them with additional natural gas with imported LNG. And this needs interconnections, partly existing, partly in new development like the Greece-North Macedonia interconnector. All those investments help to increase the resilience. As John rightly mentioned, Azerbaijan is making real efforts to increase its gas production and to reduce the domestic gas consumption. I agree the most promising ones are the Absheron, led by Total Energies, and the UMIT operated by SOCAR. But on the other side, if the EU is serious, naturally go further to bring additional gas from the Caspian, they should sign binding contracts, not just intentions and MOUs. In this regard, Turkmenistan is offering again the Caspian crossing with large volumes. But at those days, 1997, 1998, they were asking for security guarantees. This is similarly critical like NATO membership of Ukraine. So if EU is serious in this regard, they can offer the necessary guarantees and to get the Turkmeni gas across the Caspian Sea. So when we look by Black Sea development, also both projects, Neptune Deep Block and Sakarya, are well progressing. Neptune delayed a little bit, but Sakarya is on track with some marginal delay. They should reach 10 million cubic meters per day in November, and they are still slightly over 4 million cubic meters per day. But this is still promising, and this contributes to regional security. Now, the Greece is in a happy position. After Bulgaria, they get the second offer to be supplied by nuclear electricity from Turkey. So maybe they should sit and think about it, what they do. Maybe a shareholder in one of the nuclear plants to be built in the region to guarantee some baseload supply from the region. I especially follow with interest the development in Romania and this small modular reactor project of new scale can revolutionize the region's nuclear future if it's working. At the end, I would say the renewable energy deployment is well working, but the problem is, as you mentioned, costs with the grids. So even the accelerated energy storage investments do not decrease the need to further develop the grid. We should also bear in mind that with the increasing number of electric vehicles, we will face more problems regarding the grid in the future. I want to highlight the regional cooperation between the countries in Southeast Europe are commendable, and it helps a lot to overcome the difficulties of this period. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yurdakul, for a very complete and short and on the point presentation of the main issues in Turkey and how they affect the region. We've discussed this together many times, but I think you were very quiet in pointing out the role that both countries, Greece and Turkey, put at a very early stage on LNG, because you see, our countries being at the southeast part of Europe, the lower south, and having been through difficult situations of wars, etc., we very much appreciate the security aspect in energy. And therefore, when a new form of energy was introduced back in the mid-80s, late 80s, a decision was taken independently, I think, at a very early stage by the political establishment at the time, that no, we're not going to have just gas from Russia, but we're also going to have LNG land terminals, and this is how it started. And of course, Turkey was much quicker to go to floating ones. We followed, and now we're in a good situation where we are building extra capacity on LNG. This is a very good example of how the logic of energy security has guided both countries in more ways than one. And of course, Sakarya, I'm really very impressed because it was discovered in August 2020, and in less than 1,000 days, is actually producing and delivering gas. And I've seen the video of the construction phase, and I think TPAO and all the other contractors involved should be congratulated, because it's a very challenging project, and they brought this up with a lot of with safely and at a great speed. And this shows how the region actually has developed its own technical capabilities, which can be used throughout. So we'll come back. Thank you very much for a nice, very good exposition. And now I give the floor to Christos. Christos, you're taking the lead from me in coordinating, moderating this. May I tell you that we have got an extension of a quarter of an hour from the technical support unit, and we can run this webinar until 6:30. Okay.
Okay, Kostis, thank you.
Christos.
Thank you. Okay, hello to everybody from my side, and I welcome you to the session 2 of this webinar. Regarding the energy security issues, and as we turn to the new year, I thought it is useful to say a few things for the geopolitical picture of 2024. Because at the end, this is something that will influence the energy security in EU and certainly in the Southeast Europe and East Mediterranean. A series of urgent challenges as the Israel-Hamas war, the Russia-Ukraine war, China's economic troubles, and America's political dysfunction make the coming year a geopolitically turbulent one. Now, as far as concerns the Israel-Hamas war, we are not close to a resolution. The war is set probably to escalate further and for a longer period, creating in this case worries for the energy issues also. Then there is the Ukrainian war. In the last 12 months, nothing has changed there. Europe's economic support and America's economic and military support for Ukraine are becoming less certain. Ukraine is at risk of losing the war, but Russia is not going to win, whatever will be the outcome. Because at the end, NATO has been strengthened with Finland and Sweden in the doorsteps of Russia. EU opened a membership process for Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova, something unthinkable before the Russian invasion. Russia has suffered 11 rounds of sanctions and possibly even more in the future. Russia's commodity exports must be sold now to China, India, and other countries on the cheap. And finally, Moscow maybe will become more dependent on China. And for sure, the above will have an impact to Russia's international behavior, adding more instability to the geopolitical scene. From the other part, the Chinese growth is going to remain slower for longer, with a negative repercussion to global economy. USA has become a politically divided and dysfunctional democracy despite having a booming economy. The 2024 presidential election will be the turning point. If elections will head today, Trump will win. Of course, Trump faces a lot of charges and nobody knows what happens till the election day. The USA election outcome will have a tremendous impact on global affairs. In view of this development, all the other players, I mean China, European Union, Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Ukraine, etc., are calculating their risks, costs, and opportunities. All the above create a nervous situation for 2024 with its impact on energy and energy security matters. In order not to finish my intervention with just pessimistic approach, the new year will bear possibly some good news for us, like the artificial intelligence explosion and promise, the evolution of India as first-class geopolitical player, a player with ties to the West, the relative stability in USA-China relations, and finally, some promising signs in EU, like the outcome of Poland elections, the responsibility of Meloni's budget in Italy against economic populism, and finally, Hungary's failure to blackmail Brussels and to extort consensus. So certainly, EU has elections in June 2024, and the populism had some gains in Netherlands, Germany, and Slovakia, but the good signs are more promising. So, having said that, I would like to give the floor to Slavko Neikov. Slavko is an IENE partner, is an IENE partner in Bulgaria, and Slavko, you have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, okay,
Right,
that's fine.
thank you. Well, thank you very much. I'm very pleased in a way that so many geopolitical things were said within the first part. I am always trying to avoid talking about politics, but in our case, it's in a way inevitable. And I've prepared 3-4 messages from my side concerning the topic, which is energy security in Southeast Europe and the East Mediterranean. Of course, we can't make an overall assessment. We have to split between Southeast Europe and the East Mediterranean due to some political developments which were referred already to. And I will start with an optimistic issue. I think that the overall status, the current status of the energy sector, particularly in Southeast Europe, is looking pretty well, despite these political turbulences, despite the wars which were referred to. We don't have any substantial problems when it comes to particularly security of supply. And at that time, this concerns the electricity, the gas, and even the oil part. However, very unfortunately, some new risks kind of appeared, and I will refer here to the case which we had with Hungary and Serbia related to a gas tax which was imposed by the Bulgarian parliament on transit. And let me tell you the good news, the Bulgarian parliament yesterday removed this gas tax, this tax on the transit of gas. And this was due mostly to the fact that Bulgaria is applying to Schengen, and Hungary said that they will block us if this gas tax remains. So this political risk was not kind of predicted, but it happened, and thanks God it found a way forward. There were references already to elections here and there for the next year. I read somewhere that there are more than 70 countries which will have elections next year. And certainly those which were referred about the EU, the United States, and so on, will have a very big impetus on the energy security problem, on the energy security dimension. But I hope that when it comes to the stability of the energy sector, things will not change drastically. My second message after this positive one concerning the overall stability of the sector, although there are nuances when it comes to oil, gas, and all that, is that it seems that we have to coordinate much more at regional level when it comes to the demand side management. There were already statements related to the role of renewables. I will again give you a figure for Bulgaria. We have about 12,000 megawatts actually working capacities, including nuclear, hydro, renewables, coal, and we have more than 40,000 megawatts only renewables waiting on the queue for an access to the network. And on the top of that, yesterday, the Bulgarian parliament took a decision for a construction of a new nuclear unit, which should be ready by 2034. And the question is, how shall we manage under normal circumstances with all these amounts of electricity? Because at the same time, it's not only Bulgaria which is developing new capacities, it's also particularly the issue with renewables is all around, and this costs money. At the same time, we already, despite that we have so many capacities, we already import electricity more or less on a regular basis, simply because it's cheaper to import than to produce our own based on coal, for example. So this issue presupposes much stronger regional cooperation and coordination about the development of new capacities, and I think that this is a very good topic for work along IENE. My third message concerns oil, and I will be practical again, not talking about politics. I don't know whether you're aware that the oil refinery in Bulgaria, which is called Lukoil Neftochim Burgas, although being a Bulgarian company, which means EU company, has Russian roots. And there is a decision from yesterday of the Bulgarian parliament, according to which, starting 1st of January, this company has a ban at 2024, 1st of January 2024. This company has a ban to export products which have been produced based on Russian oil. And since 1st of March, it has a ban to import Russian oil. But I think this is a good example when the economics was kind of covered by politics, because according to the EU regulation, this ban could have happened on the 1st of December 2024. That is, the Bulgarian government and the Bulgarian parliament speeded this up. And I don't think that anybody has a clear view what will be the outcome of this, economically, I mean, because this company also exports all products for the region, not only for the Bulgarian market. And my fourth point, which was kind of touched, I think, by Mr. Puritsa in a way, concerns the training, the education issue, and I will add here also the demographic problem. And this is something which we also should look at in more intensive manner at a regional basis. I will not go into details of the demographic problems. Just to mention one fact, I referred to that there is a decision already for construction of a new nuclear unit in Kozloduy. Mr. Puritsa knows this region is very close to Bucharest. And recently we heard the news that there will be the necessity of 10,000 people to work on that. And in this part of Bulgaria, there are hardly dwellings with so many people, not to mention with workers. And at the same time, the topic about education should be pushed forward at European level due to the new technologies. And I think this is also an area where IENE can have a look at a regional level and to provide a platform for exchanging views. Let me also mention one thing, and I will finish with this. Yesterday, the Energy Community Secretariat published 2 guidelines, which are of very important nature, not only for the countries which are not EU members, but also for countries like Bulgaria, Greece, Romania, which are EU members. One of them concerns the demand reduction measures, and the other one concerns policy guidelines for building innovations. That is, all these steps should in a way be looked at together as to have a better sense of energy security in Southeast Europe. I will stop here because we are lagging behind, and I'm open for comments, agreements, and disagreements on what I said. Thank you.
Slavko, we thank you very much indeed, and would like to hear from you the news from Bulgaria, the energy news from Bulgaria, and you delivered to us very clear messages. Certainly, all the countries around developing their capacities. I would like to ask you, you know, the penetration of RES moving high and high all the time. Do you think that we have enough infrastructure, and I mean grids and storages, to support this penetration? And if you consider that all this infrastructure needs a cost, and possibly a high cost, and what is your opinion? Who is going to bear this cost? The companies, the states, the citizens, all together? I think it is a very interesting thing, and we would like you to comment on it.
Yeah, well, the infrastructure issue is a key issue when it comes to the penetration of renewables. I mentioned the amount of new capacities waiting on the line, and they are not included into the system simply because the infrastructure is not there. The problem with who should support that has been elaborated at European level. There is a very recent report by Euroelectric. I'm a member of the board of board of directors of Euroelectric, and this issue has been raised very substantially at European level. But at the end of the day, it depends very much on the national steps and national authorities. And in our case, in the case of Bulgaria, still the state, the government, unfortunately, differentiates between the state-owned company, the electricity system operator, and the distribution system companies, which are privately owned, because the EU funds are mostly allocated for the state-owned company. At the same time, the law has been changed. In fact, it's 2 laws which have been changed, which provide more and more obligations for the private-owned companies, for the distribution system operators, and but at the same time, the state does not provide the adequate legal framework. And I can give you a lot of examples just to mention that on one side, the DSOs are obliged, so to say, to do everything to connect the households which use renewables, but at the same time, the state does not support the municipalities, which have a lot of say in this process, including for the knowledge of the administration. And in parallel, they increased via the law the penalties to the distribution system operators to a level which can bring them to bankruptcy within 20 cases. So there is inadequate approach at national level. There's a kind of a general understanding, but when it comes to the national level approach, there is a problem. So this is a huge issue for the infrastructure development. And by the way, we are already at a level when even the electricity system operators started to complain. The state-owned company started to complain about that. So I'm looking forward not so much to the way the law is going to be changed, but rather to the practical implementation process.
Okay, it's understood. Do we have a clear sign from Brussels concerning to what direction we shall move? Because if we are going to leave to the states, then I think it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, it is a mess. Let's be honest with that, because Brussels, and by the way, we should be correct. We also participate in Brussels decision-making process as countries. So it's not only the Commission which says something; it's also the Council and the Parliament where our countries are represented. So it's not only the fault of the Commission. Brussels' line is clear: more renewables. Quick electrification of the industry. There is also a new industrial act, which should come into force any moment. So it's not only about the energy sector, it's about the economy. But these are general guidelines. At the end of the day, Brussels leaves the implementation at national level. And here are the problems.
Okay, thank you a lot. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move to our next speaker, who is Mihailo Mihailovic. Mihailo Mihailovic is coming from Serbia. Welcome, Mihailo. Is another IENE partner based in Serbia. Mihailo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dimas. I would, let's say, okay. Is that visible to you?
Yeah. Yes, excellent.
Okay. First of all, dear colleagues, good afternoon from Belgrade. And I would thank to Mr. Dimas and Mr. Stambolis to opportunity to participate in this webinar. As you know, here in Serbia, there is a huge social dialogue and debates on all of world issues, geopolitical and security issues. As you maybe know, Serbia remained open to all of media channels of both the West and the East, including those banned on the West. I prepared some slides, I think it's a 9, like illustration of thing that I will try to convey to you some facts, some thoughts, and some determination of the majority of public opinion in Serbia. First slide is a map of Europe, and in the heart of the Balkans, yellow color marks the possible candidates for EU. According to the latest decision of the EU during 2022 and 2023, the new candidates are Ukraine, Moldova, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Georgia. The map of the member countries of NATO alliance is almost the same or pretty similar. Serbia's geopolitical and economic problems are a little bit different than the other Balkan countries. We are not member of NATO. We are not imposing sanctions to Russia. We have strategically and long-term good relations with China and some other BRICS countries. And finally, we have a huge domestic or more international problem of Kosovo province, as you know. The collective West, led by United States, had a long-term plan to form Kosovo as an independent territory, both for military reason and rich natural resources. Whatever legal trickery the West uses to override UN Security Council Resolution 1244, which still exists, that resolution kept Kosovo still in Serbia. Actual state of play of Serbia, overview for 2023. EU accession remained a key policy anchor for the government in the last 20 years. But process of accession is burdened by political demands, by pressure, by threats. In a way, you are either with us or against us. It's a little bit heavy, but could you accept this? In general, Serbia has continuity, has a good political and economic stability. Serbia fosters a responsible international policy based on respect of international law. Nothing new happened in a parliamentary election 2 days ago. With minor variations, all parties and leaders are in the place. The Serbian Progressive Party continues to lead the country until the next election. Also, you have to know, by any public poll we used to have in Serbia, 80% of Serbian citizens do not want to join the EU if the condition is either the surrender of Kosovo or imposing sanctions to Russia. Generally, you can see by numbers that Serbia is in a good economic position with a significant progress. In energy security and energy sovereignty in some way is a matter of national security. Import dependency ratio for Serbia is still around 35% in comparing with European average of 55%. Serbia is very well prepared for this winter season. We have 75 days of oil and petroleum products. We have 20 days on coal stockpiles near to the thermal power plants and 680 million cubic meters of natural gas in storages in Serbia and Hungary. Let's say that in our traditional, but also in our professional culture, I'm thinking about the people who are running the energy business in Serbia, is this security of supply and affordability are the most important priority elements of any sustainability in Serbia. Next slide is a slide about expanded South Corridor. I updated the existing map with IBS interconnector between Serbia and Bulgaria, which is a new one. In this November, Serbia signed the interconnection agreement with Bulgar Transgas and commercial agreement with Azerbaijan for the supply of up to the 400 million cubic meters per year of gas from Caspian Basin until the end of 2026. In general, gas market in the region is fragmented, and by the way, Serbia is not yet part of Sea Gas initiative by energy community. You see on the next map is also, I'm trying to show you, the big red line is a Balkan Stream, the smaller one is IBS between Serbia and Bulgaria. Extension of Turk Stream 2, pipeline number 2, we called Balkan Stream through the Balkan area, is the main supplying gas pipeline for Serbia and Hungary. Both countries have a special contracts with the Gazprom for the next few years. Even Hungary have a longer contract. Hungary consumes about 8 billion cubic meters. Serbia is about 3 billion cubic meters per year. As you heard from Mr. Slavcho, on October 13, Bulgaria introduced additional taxes on the transit of Russian gas in the amount of 10 euros per megawatt hour. But yesterday, new decision of a Bulgarian parliament, this tax was withdrawn. It looks to me like a small regional geopolitical game of interests. Anyway, in the security of supply of electricity, Serbia is self-sufficient in production of electricity, generation of electricity, but with some seasonal variations in import and export. Also, production is still highly dependent on coal. About 70% of our production generation is coming from coal. We are on the track with the implementation of new renewable energy sources initiatives in order to more intensify use of renewable energy sources. The first auction were launched this August, where 450 megawatts of new capacities for wind and solar plants were allocated. In the period 2023 up to the 2025 is planned allocation of incentives for the construction 1.3 gigawatts project from renewable energy sources. I can comment in reality, every megawatt of wind or solar added to the electric grid requires a megawatt of backup from traditional sources to run constantly at spinning reserve to regulate the flow of fluctuating power. Keep that in mind. Serbia as a part of energy community. As mostly of you knows, the energy community is an international organization under the auspice of European Union with the aim of expanding the internal energy market, EU energy market and regulations to the region of Southeastern Europe and Black Sea region. Right now, currently, there are 9 members of energy community. In the annual implementation performance report released 7 days ago, Serbia was marked as a leader in the overall score and specifically in security of supply, decarbonization, and implementation of reforms. You can see on that diagram, and average Serbian score in all of 5 areas are 63% in comparing with the average score of other parties, which is 53%. Next slide, I call it global geopolitical relations. Here, you are aware that the international situation is completely different than 10 years ago. Meetings of world political leaders are the most pessimistic since the United Nations existed. It looks to me that the EU lost its international position and becoming in some way geopolitical project of the United States. Currently, the biggest losers are Ukraine and Europe, while the winners are on the US side. I just compiled some data, like according to International Monetary Fund, the US share of global GDP based on PPP, purchasing power parity, is around 15.4%. At the same time, the Chinese share of global GDP in the same category is 18.8%. Also, International Monetary Fund predicted 2.3% declining of the Russian economy in 2023. But after revisions, the latest estimate is that the Russian economy will experience a jump of 2.2%. Along with a historically low employment in Russia for currently 2.9%, Russia is in the best economic situation in the country recent history. You can see on a diagram or on a picture that two-thirds of world population or world countries that did not show solidarity with the Western countries. And finally, I will try to summarize. I will be short. Generally, great powers do not respect international law and interpret it according to their own needs. EU Commission setting a target for the EU to be free of all Russian fossil fuels by 2027. But at the same time, these days, EU is was importing record volumes of LNG from Russia despite those targets in 2027. In another word, I would say, while interests speak, the truth is usually silent. I would say, at the end, the Serbia will follow a little bit slower, controlled green transition path due to its own natural resources and lower investment potential than the other developed countries. It is optimal for Serbia for the next few decades to follow a balanced integration of renewable energy sources into the existing system and the formation of the pathway, which is consists of coal plus rest, which is an actual situation. Next segment is a gas plus rest, and finally, at the time in a few decades, probably is going to be nuclear plus renewable energy sources. And finally, energy security depends primarily on people, and Serbia is proud of some of its people. They inspire us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mihailo. Thank you indeed. Thank you for your excellent slides regarding the Serbia policies. And I just noticed your efforts to move towards renewable sources. But my understanding is that you're enough behind. Can you elaborate a bit on it? You told us that there are no investments, there are no money for that. What's going on? Because something has to be done.
First of all, Serbia have installed 8,500 megawatts of total installation. 3,550, something like that, it's in renewable energy sources. So our energy mix, it's a good one in terms of, let's say it's a good one, it's a thankful good one for a balancing system. Thermal power plants are basic load. The others, including a huge number of hydro potential plus pumps, are good for a balancing system. Investment in Serbia in a first wave of implementation of new renewable energy sources, including solar and wind, was delegated to the private entrepreneurship. Lately, with the changing in a government, the government decided to be in parallel, both private investment, but also on a state side to go to the huge investment. Like they made some sort of agreement with some American funds or whatever to produce like a first 1 gigawatt solar power station. The second one, we used to have for a long time ago, projects for 2 hydroelectric pumps. One is on the western side of Serbia, and another one is on the Danube on the eastern part of Serbia. Those pumps are required a time, require the money, and those projects are pretty huge in terms of financing, and we are looking for some additional investors, both on the west, the east, or from the region, to be like, let's say, joint investment in that type of installation.
Okay, Mihailo. Okay, Mihailo, thank you very much. Now we move to our next speaker. I don't know if we have Professor Alexandra Mateska from North Macedonia.
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon. How are you? Because I have not seen you. Okay, since we don't have enough time, you have the floor.
Okay.
Please be a little bit short, okay?
Yes, I will. I have some few slides to share with you. I hope it's visible. Fine. Okay. So, can you see the slides? Yes, I think you can. First of all, thank you, Mr. Dimasan, for the opportunity to participate, and thank you, Mr. Stamboulis, too. It is a really pleasure to hear all of this interesting discussion so far. From my side, I will try to have a more technical perspective on the issue of energy security. I think we have already a lot of in-depth analysis what's going on in the region geopolitically. So I will stick more to the technical issues, and also I will tackle a little bit the Western Balkan region. So secure operation of power systems and well-functioning markets are essential for secure and continuous supply of electricity. And even when all conditions are met, still some disruptions may occur. And these disruptions may come from different sources. different external factors can change the supply of can disrupt the supply of electricity. Some of these factors can be categorized as geopolitical, economic, and social developments that are global and that affect the energy sectors and the electricity sectors. And some of these factors are, let's say, man-made, related to, for example, terrorist attacks or cybersecurity attacks, or natural disasters and bad weather that can also impact the operation of power systems and disrupt secure supply. And the problem of the energy sector and the power systems in general is that the connectivity, the interconnectivity between countries and systems, and the effects that one disruption may have on the whole region. So we may face problems that or issues in the network that can spread very fast and can affect economical operation of companies, or they can affect the society, or they can have strong environmental impacts. So I would discuss, let's say, the first set of these factors through the situation in Western Balkan countries, and then I would continue with the second set of these external factors. So we've heard a lot about the region, but I would like just to point out how the geopolitical developments had impact on the Western Balkan 6 countries, and especially the global energy crisis. So the countries have shown high vulnerability to high prices, which then affected the economic development of the region and of each of these countries. And this was predominantly due to a long-term underinvestment in the energy sector and in electricity sector as well. And this became really observable during the crisis, and it's still observable because we're still struggling in the whole regions, in the whole region. And also, we have suffered from the effect of delayed development of electricity markets and market coupling. So the crisis has taught us that urgent need for transformation of the energy sector is required, but also we need to develop them and build them more resilient to external factors. A very important development has been done with the adoption of the Declaration on Energy Security and Green Transition in the Western Balkan, which actually recognizes the need to transform the energy sector and align the legislation to the EU objectives, predominantly the objectives described in the Green Deal. So the energy community is already implementing, let's say, reports on how this declaration is implemented in the region, and a number of issues have been and challenges have been observed that need to be addressed in the upcoming years. So adequate conditions need to be developed for investments in the electricity sector and in general in energy sector. But when we're talking about electricity, technologies both on supply and demand side are needed, and investments in both sides are needed. So not only developments in electricity production, but also measures on energy efficiency and demand side management are required. Then regional cooperation needs to be strengthened, and to manage the crisis, to manage a crisis that can have, let's say, various causes. Either, as I said, crises that can be provoked by man-made attack or natural disasters, and with regional cooperation to build up the overall resilience of the energy sector in the Western Balkans. Of course, as we said, green transition is among the planned activities for this region, and the path that we decided to take as a region. And investments in renewables are already speeding up, especially in some of the countries. For example, in North Macedonia, we had over 140 megawatts in 1 year installed capacity, which is huge compared to previous years. And this happened due to the crisis, the energy crisis, and the high market prices have somehow spurred the investments in renewable energy sources. So we also need to develop liquid intraday and balancing markets to tackle balancing of these sources, and of course timely transposition and implementation of Clean Energy Package Acts is also required. So this was, let's say, a more geopolitical aspect, and let's go now to a more technical aspect and address the threats. As I said, the ones that are external factors but can be man-made or natural-made, and that they can both impact the security of supply. So we've seen disruption of electricity supply, market disruptions in supply chains, and all of these issues somehow reflect into security of supply. So, for example, markets can be jeopardized by tampering essential data and information, but also the attack space on markets widens because of digitalization of various services. So the opportunity to attack are just increasing as we are digitalizing our society. But also we need information and control systems in power system in order to obtain a secure system operation on one side, but on the other side, these systems can be objective to cyber attacks. So this could also lead to disruption of electricity supply. But the disruptions may also cause cyber attacks may also cause disruption in supply chains. And then again, this could impact the security of electricity supply. Extreme weather events and natural disasters, of course, are also important issue to be considered, especially as we are all facing the effects of climate change, which differ in different parts of the world. But some parts are facing wildfires, others floods, extreme temperatures, and these external conditions influence security of supply. So how to increase the resilience of our systems? We need to perform proper and continuous risk assessment of threats and vulnerabilities. We need to be vigilant, and we need to adapt to the evolving nature of various threats. How can we do this? We need to implement legislation requirements, but we also need to develop tools for critical entities, including utilities that are operating in the energy sector. So from the legislative aspects and institutional aspects, a lot of acts have been adopted within the EU, addressing let's say, critical entities and their resilience, and increasing security and resilience of systems to cyber attacks. So we have a set of horizontal legislation that is in place already, and the European countries are in the phase of transpositioning these directives. And also our region, the Western Balkan region, will in future need to implement this horizontal framework. But we also have specific documents in the energy sector, like risk preparedness regulation, or the network code on cybersecurity that also deal with the topic of security of supply. And we need to build up the institutions, their competence to address this evolving, let's say, threats. Just an example. Here
Alexandra, we need to hurry up, okay?
Okay. Just I need 1 or 2 minutes to wrap it up. So here we just have like a description of directives. One from some 10 years ago, and the new one, the Critical Entities Resilience Directive, and you can see how many obligations already are imposed on critical entities and what they need to do to secure their to build up the resilience. This slide just shows how incident notification is very important. So spreading the word about incidents among utilities and among stakeholders is really important to build up their resilience as well. And of course, critical entities, all stakeholders in our sector need to implement measures that will support and increase their resilience to the various number of threats that I just explained. So the project that we're working on now actually deals with developing tools, especially designed for transmission system operators and distribution system operators, to increase their overall resistance and resilience to external factors. Here are just this is just an overview of the project. I won't go into details because there is really these are technical issues, but I just want to address the importance of developing tools and preparing the utilities to be more resilient to both natural and man-made threats. So this is all I had for today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Alexandra, thank you. Indeed, it was a very interesting exposition of what is going on in Western Balkan countries, how to respond to the various challenges, etc. If I have time, I will come back to you and to ask you how you see, because I have seen your faculty. How do you see the entrance of artificial intelligence in the energy issues? But let me talk about that later on if we have time. Now we shall move to our next speaker, Teresa Fokianou. Teresa, you have the floor. Okay. And we need to be short because we don't have enough time.
I know. The pressure is always on the last speaker. I know.
Due to the technical reasons. Okay.
Okay. Recently, Institute of Energy, IEA, defines energy security as an uninterrupted availability of energy resources at an affordable price. But we must take into account that energy security is availability, affordability, accessibility, and acceptability. The strategy for energy security based on diversifying supplies, increasing exploration and production, alternate energy sources, and energy transition through a gas-based economy. Energy security risks include high energy prices, fuel shortages, the effects on climate change, and net zero transition risks, such as lack of investment or system operable challenges. The Gaza war guarantees risk for Europe's energy security, especially for Southeast Europe countries and East Med region. Israel war on Gaza looks to escalate into a wide region in West Asia, Europe's primary source of oil and gas, driving energy prices to the roof, especially if the conflict leaks into the Persian Gulf. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine early 2022, Europeans imposed a limited embargo on Russia, which holds 6% of the world's oil reserves and a significant 24% of global gas reserves. The European Union resolved to reduce its dependence on Russian gas, viewing West Asia and North Africa producers as potential saviors in meeting its continent energy needs and ensure its energy security, which collectively contain approximately 57% of the world's oil reserves and 41% of the world's proven gas reserves. But today, even these secondary energy sources may be seriously jeopardized if Israel war on Gaza looks to escalate into the region-wide conflict in West Asia. But there are the Gaza war impact on East Med energy security. Prior to the Gaza war, natural gas discoveries in the East Mediterranean offered attractive prospects. As Israel boosted its gas production from 16.11 billion BCM in 2020 to 21.92 BCM last year. It expanded energy cooperation with Egypt and meanwhile brokered a historic maritime boundary deal between Israel and Lebanon, allowing the two to commence gas exploration and drilling in once disputed waters. The region appeared to be entering a phase of energy cooperation and security. Then came Israel's war with Hamas. On October 9, 2 days after the surprise Hamas assault, Israel suspended output from Tamar, its second largest gas field, due to safety concerns. The cast uncertainty over gas export to Egypt has been grappling with rising domestic consumption. Subsequently, Israel oil terminal in Ashkelon was closed to vessels amid rocket attacks. And if the conflict broadens to include Hezbollah, it will exacerbate Lebanon's already acute energy crisis. In Israel, the development of Leviathan and Tamar, along with the smaller Karish field, which started production in October 2022, forecast to add more than 15 BCM per year to supply by 2026, where this increase could bring significant revenue to Israel, while Israeli gas could be useful to European governments as they seek to diversify supplies and reduce their reliance on Moscow. To that end, the EU signed a memorandum of understanding with Egypt and Israel in June 2022 for shipping gas produced in either country to the continent via Egypt to underused liquefied natural gas facilities, the Shell-operated HQ facility and Eni-operated Damietta plant. Increasing output from Egypt, however, would require increasing production and development infrastructure. Israeli government figures show that in 2022, 63% of its gas export went to Egypt and 37% to Jordan. Amid rising domestic gas demand in summer 2022, Egypt was heavily reliant on Israeli imports, particularly to fuel the gas-fired plants that account for about 3/4 of its power supply. This affected its ability to maintain LNG exports. To fill the gap, Egypt arranged for increased gas export from Tamar that August. This deal, which would have improved Israel's revenue and bolstered the diplomatic ties with Cairo, is now shrouded in uncertainty with production from Tamar suspending. On October 29, Egypt announced that gas flows from Israel had come to a halt, raising questions about its ability to resume LNG exports. In the meantime, Israel crude oil imports were disrupted after it closed the Ashkelon terminal. If Israel-Hezbollah tension gets worse, Lebanon's caretaker government does not have the ability to address new emergencies. A wider conflict would also affect shipping traffic into Lebanon, increasing pressure on its struggling economy. The Gaza war has exposed the area's high geopolitical risk. The World Bank conducted a geopolitical risk analysis study to gauge the impact of this Palestine-Israel conflict on global oil prices. The study categorized the escalation of tension into 3 levels: small, medium, and large. In the small level, the initial oil price increased 3% between $93 and $102 per barrel. In the medium tension, the cost will be between $109 and $121 per barrel. And in the high tension, it comes up to $140 to $155 per barrel. Any such increase in oil prices would spell disaster in Europe, which is already grappling with the burden of purchasing energy sources at inflated prices and compensate for its reduced imports from Russia. In addition to the immediate repercussion of escalating tensions and the looming regional war driving up oil and gas prices worldwide, Europe faces a multitude of other factors that could profoundly influence energy export from the Arab world. A full-scale regional conflict involving the axis of resistant countries such as Iran, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon could have dire consequences. These countries, all possessing access to seas and straits, could potentially disrupt trade routes to Europe, including the movement of oil and liquefied gas. The Strait of Hormuz, situated between Oman and Iran, holds immense significance as the world's primary energy corridor, with over a fifth of the global oil supply and a third of total LNG supply passing through. Major oil exporting countries, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, and United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Iraq, rely on this passage. Additionally, Qatar, the largest LNG exporter worldwide, ships the majority of its LNG export through the strait. With roughly 20% of global LNG flows traveling the strait annually, any closure by Iran on its allies could severely impact Europe's oil and gas supply. Only 2 words. If the war expands, the hydrocarbon sector will not be spared the economic ramification, and the energy plans of regional government will be posted for years to come. But there is a green light. Rigas Mathios, CEO of Energean, commented during the CPO28 conference by the parties under the United Nations Climate Change Conference hosted in Dubai from 30 November to 12 of December. EastMed can contribute and enhance both energy security and industrial decarbonization if the correct policy and regulatory process are put in place, and will intensive new investment by the private sector. EastMed can make a material contribution to energy sector through enhanced regional gas production and can drive the energy transition forwards through new carbon storage projects that will support heavy industry and economic development as long as policy and regulatory framework encourage investment. This is a green light for the future DAL in energy sector. Thank you.
Teresa, we thank you very much. We thank you very much for your comprehensive presentation and the clear picture that you gave to us of what is going on in this very hot corner of the world, which is very, very important from the energy point of view.
Thank you.
And thanks, of course, because you gave to us the message that the precise definition and analysis of energy security is a proper tool in order to understand what's going on with this energy security. Kostas, do we have any time to make one question to Alexandra and one to Teresa?
Yes, go ahead. We have some time. Yes.
Okay, so Teresa, I'm going to revert to Alexandra and then I will come back to you.
Okay.
Alexandra, already I put my question to you, and since I think that this is your trend, tell me, how do you see the penetration of artificial intelligence in the energy issues? Because what I have seen till now is that I'm going to see tremendous changes in our systems. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Dimas. I think your question is a very important one, as the whole sector will be going through digitalization process, and everything that can be digitalized will be. So not only artificial intelligence, I think machine learning, deep learning techniques, big data analysis, everything will be implemented in our sector. And you know, this was the way it was even before. I think the energy sector was the first implementing a real, let's say, intelligent modules for let's say for protection purposes, even in the 80s in the last century. So we've always been the progressive ones. I think the artificial intelligence is only one side of the coin. As I said, the whole process of digitalization will definitely change the sector and will definitely increase the threats toward our sector, for sure. It will enable us to control it better, to balance it better, to provide more services for everyone, tailored services like we see in let's say in telecommunications. But the other side of the coin will be that we will see more attacks, more attack vectors, more possibilities to disrupt, and I think it's going to be a tremendous work is going to be needed in this area in the future. Imagine just that in 2022, about more than 1,100 attacks weekly are done on utilities. Of course, not power utilities only, but all utilities. So we have the artificial intelligence and all other technologies to support us, but also to create backdoors for attackers, and this will require a lot of work.
Okay. Alexandra, I think that we are going to discuss with Kostis that IENE should proceed to a conference or something like that about artificial intelligence, and I think that you are going to be part of it. Okay, now
I'll be very glad. Thank you.
Okay. So Teresa, I'm wondering what is going to be done with natural gas after 2050, because
Yes, I know what you mean, Christos, but
Sorry, because I have seen a chart from Amit Moore. What is going to be the energy mix in Israel by 2050? And if I remember well, it was a combination of natural gas and renewable sources. So what's going on with Europe about that, please?
We know very well that gas will continue to play a critical and even a growing role in the longer term global energy configuration, including the energy performance of gas-based technologies, complementary between gas and intermittent renewables, and the emergence of LNG reinforce gas's role in improving energy access and security. So we need a further investment in exploration and production of gas. And where do I now? We see that big companies, very big companies, the IOC companies have look for a new fields and new fields for exploration and production of gas. That means that the gas will stay for long, and also it is the gas, of course, is from gas we can produce green, not green, but is between not sorry, because my gas not green I'm sorry, but
from CO2 we can produce we can facilitate the production of hydrogen, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Not green hydrogen, but blue hydrogen.
Blue hydrogen. Okay. Teresa, thank you. Kostis, now is your turn.
I don't know if John Roberts would like to make a summing up statement. If not, I will proceed to, first of all, thank you all speakers and delegates for participating in this end of the year webinar. I think we have all learned from each other. We have all learned the latest of what's happening actually in the region. The big advantage of such a webinar is we have such a good diversity of speakers and countries, and in this way, I think the knowledge and the feeling is very instant. So I think we all have benefited from increased awareness of what's really happening around us. And in this respect, I think all speakers were very well prepared. They had excellent points and presentations even. So I have no words to thank them. I'll talk a little practical steps, what we're going to do now. In the microsite we have created for this event, we are going to upload the presentations we have. If some speakers who did not have presentation, they want to summarize the points, they have time, they can send this to us, and we can also post this on the microsite. And we will try and make also a summing up of the event. Probably we're going to post this next week. So by the end of the year, we'll have a very pretty good picture of what transpired. And I think this will be very useful as a reference point. Now, while we're still all together, I'd like to say that we have planned a very interesting program of activities for next year. Definitely artificial intelligence is going to be part of this. We don't know whether we're going to do this an actual seminar with the physical presence or online. Probably it will be online because we want to have people from different countries. And the other thing we are planning, which we have not yet entered into the program, is an online meeting on COP28 and afterwards. I mean, how this is going to affect Southeast Europe. It will not be a repetition of what happened in COP28. I think we all have our sources and can find exactly what happened, but it will be the impact of COP28, if any, in the region, and how developments are going to be influenced. So you'll hear well in advance about this project. And without further ado, I'd like to wish to everybody happy, Christmas and Happy New Year, especially Happy New Year. And we look forward to seeing each other again next year in one of our webinars, meetings, or travels, even travels. We do travel around the region and we meet each other. So my best wishes to you and your families, to the speakers and the delegates, and Happy New Year.